Hi, it's Morgan Fischer. I am making vlog number 2. It's January 11th, and this is about our 6th day here in Vilnius. In this vlog, I'm going to detail my perceptions on the Greenhouse Museum with connections to our reading. Our reading was by Marion Hirsch, and it was titled Surviving Images, Holocaust Photographs, and the Work of Post-Memory. Through these connections, I will also detail our meetings and our walkthroughs of the Jewish ghetto, as well as connect it to our time spent with the veterans. So we went to the Greenhouse Museum, and I was expecting more of a museum and was very happy when I found that it wasn't, because it made it more personable. I was very grateful for having a tour guide with us. He was very knowledgeable, and it was interesting for me to hear him talk about his reaction and his research, because he is not from here, he was from Austria, and so hearing his viewpoint and how that might differ from the people who are still in Vilnius and have that personal connection was very interesting to hear. I noted how it was nice to have the connection with him through Fania. She also knew him. He had met her and had told him her story, much like we saw in the interview, and so that connection made it easier to kind of connect with him. By him meeting her and him doing his research, I believe that is a form of post-memory, like talked about in the reading that we made. One image that really stuck with me through his description is one that we've seen in the classroom as well as in other museums, and just learning about what happened here. And that was the picture of the people who had been beaten with metal bars and hosed down, and the people were standing watching. And his reaction to this was very real. It was very personable, and it was also an emotional reaction, which you don't always have in museums. They can be very hard to really read, but you could tell that he wanted us to understand this picture and wanted us to understand how horrible of an experience this must have been and how horrid it is that it happened. So I really appreciated having these conversations with him, and I appreciated having him as a post-memory tour guide. He did not live in the time of the atrocities, but he has put the effort forward to preserve the history and inform others of what he knows. And I really appreciated the fact that he was able to be that knowledgeable. He's learned from the people who lived in that time, as well as learned from his own research. And so that really connects to the reading we had. We are viewing these images and sites that we visit through the post-memory. We are not the generation to live in these times of horror, and we must be mindful of this. And like Hirsch said in her writing, traumatic memories are already hard to remember due to the way people heal and the way people deal with trauma. And it's hard on the minds and the bodies of the victims, so it's really important that we, as a different generation of people who didn't directly experience this, are knowledgeable, and we are putting effort towards learning more about what has happened. And I think the connection between the reading and the museums has been really a strong one in this one, and I appreciate the connections that can be made. When I viewed the images that have been all over in museums and on the internet, they're available in so many places, but you don't view them with someone who's been through them. And so it made me wonder what the survivors think of when they see these pictures and how that makes them feel. And when we got to meet with the veterans of the Soviet-Afghanistan War, that really was something that I wanted to see. I didn't know if there would be pictures hanging on the wall, so I was really surprised when we got there and we saw all the pictures that were available for us to view. And I really appreciated the openness that the veterans had with us, and you could tell that they were pleased that we were wanting to learn more and that they wanted others to learn more, much like us. And I remember Hirsch had a conversation in her writing of a conversation had with a survivor of showing a picture of the ghetto, and that picture, though the survivor knew immediately that it was in the ghetto, it led to more questions and led to her wanting to go back and remember more details that they wouldn't immediately know. And so through having conversations like the ones we had there, when we sat down in our personal groups, I noticed with our veteran that sat in our group, when he would speak, he would look at his shoes. So when he was telling his stories, he would look down and speak. He couldn't look face to face. And he also couldn't look at the pictures while he spoke. He looked down or away from the pictures. And then when he finished his story, then he went into detail about what was happening around him and what each picture meant, because the connection of his personal memories in those pictures and the connection of the need to see the pictures, he knew it was important, but he also knew that if he wanted to be able to get through his stories completely, he was going to have to work through them. And the stories were very hard for them to tell, and when they did tell, you could tell it mattered to them that we heard their stories, and it was stories that I had no idea took place, and I can't imagine being in their place. So in a way, we are the post-memory now that we've had these interviews, and now I have to figure out how to move on and head home after a while and be able to relay what we learned in those interviews. And I think that's going to be challenging, so that's something that I plan to be deciding on in the next few weeks before we head home. And on a final note, I'm surprised by how little remembrance of the old ghetto and new ghetto there was. The small and large ghetto, not old and new. It makes me wonder, if we weren't told that we were standing where a ghetto used to be, where all of these awful things happened to people, if we would have any clue that it was happening. And so I really just think that awareness is a big thing in learning, and I hope to remain aware as I continue on this trip.